Welcome to ESGX Live, the community for information and education that inspires collaboration and action. And welcome in particular to our monthly Green Jobs Report. In today's episode, we're going to explore the links between green jobs and economic cycles. Do green jobs increase or decrease, both in absolute and perhaps relative terms, during a recession? We'll also look at what types of jobs are being lost during the COVID-19 crisis and what action we can all take to build a greener economy. Now, Paul, Herman and I are conscious that there are still plenty of people around who are skeptical about the transition to renewable energy, in part perhaps because of the size of the task and the perceived costs and the way all of this has been discussed over the last several decades. So another way to think about these issues is through the traditional lens of efficiency, both in commercial terms, the cost of power, and the way in which we use our scarce resources. As we count down to the hour, here are a few ideas to keep in mind during today's discussion. First, we have more capital available than ever before, and interest rates are at a 5,000-year low, as this chart shows. Given how efficient we've become at growing food and making things, perhaps this shouldn't be a surprise. In other words, sustained low interest rates mean simply perhaps that there's a greater supply of finance and there are projects that need funding. There are different ways to look at this, as this chart from the Bank of England presented by Visual Capitalist shows. Second, the level of investment globally in renewable energy is running at around $80 billion a year, and the pipeline of projects remains strong. From what I've seen with my Pottinger hat on, there is a very strong investor demand for these types of projects, and the cost of that capital is pretty low. Third, the United States is facing the most severe contraction in employment in living memory, and many other countries around the world face similar challenges. There is a pressing need to act to address this stress on society. Fourth, the level of inequality continues to increase both in the USA and globally, and this is a challenge because the greater the concentration of wealth, the less of that wealth and income is being spent back into society, effectively the opposite of the trickle-down effect, if you like. The spending power is being sucked up into fewer hands, and that money is then not spent. Finally, only 16 states in the US have the reserves they need to withstand the current recession. Now, this may all sound pretty daunting, but the solutions to the economic and social problems we face have already been found. We don't need moonshots, perhaps. We just need better maths and better decision making. And Mark Cuban put all of this pretty well in a presentation he made for the graduation ceremony for 2020 graduates very recently.
And Americans don't quit, ever. We've explored the heavens above and the oceans below. Whether fighting world wars or economic downturns, whenever we've been knocked down, we've always stood back up, taller, stronger, ready to build an even better future. World War I inspired us to invent the blood bank. Yet amidst the horrors of World War II, we found a way to mass-produce penicillin. Hell, the Great Depression led to the creation of the chocolate chip cookie. Think about that. There was a time before the chocolate chip cookie. From the depths of despair, Americans always come together, united. And that's what we must do again. We must seize this moment to build a smarter, more resilient, more compassionate America. If you look closely, you can already see new flashes of American creativity. That spirit is what will empower us to emerge from this crisis stronger than ever. None of us can be heroes unless all of us are heroes.
Now, Mark talks about America, but the messages in there are relevant to every country facing these challenges. As I've said here, we understand many of the challenges and we already have many solutions. We don't need a moonshot. We simply need better math. Now, in the 20th century, America was a beacon for innovation and for democracy, and indeed for federal government investment to help new industries emerge. So whether we're talking about a Green New Deal or just a 21st century New Deal, the message will be the same. If we work together effectively and inclusively, we can build a stronger, fairer, more resilient economy, and we can do this in a way which will benefit everyone. We have the solutions, we have the capital, we have the need and motivation to act. We simply need to make smarter decisions about when we act and how we invest our capital. To help us do exactly this, we have four fantastic guests today. Dr. Scott Fulwiler from the University of Missouri, Dr. Fadhel Kaboub from Denison University, and who is president of the Global Institute for Sustainable Prosperity, and his colleagues Kathy Cowan-Becker and Amir Kilegi, who are both research fellows at the Institute. We are also joined today by our guest host, Lucia Polman. So all that remains is for me, Nigel Lake in New York, and Paul Herman in San Francisco, to wish a very good morning to everybody who is joining us early in the Asia Pacific region. A good afternoon to everybody here with us in the Americas, and a good evening to those who have stayed up to tune in from Africa and Europe. We appreciate you joining us. Please do join the chat, ask questions in the Q&A, introduce yourself to your colleagues in the chat function, and we very much look forward to the discussion.